Before we get started, hit the comments and tell me where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Whether you're catching sunrise in Nairobi, burning midnight in New York, afternoon in Canada, or evening in France, I want to hear from you. Don't just watch silently, let me know where in the world you are. Now let's dive into the story. The conference room smelled of polished wood and cold metal, a scent that screamed authority. General Harkins leaned back in his chair, smirking at the young woman standing before him. She was petite, her dark brown hair pinned neatly under a cap, lips pressed in polite tension. "You must be the civilian everyone keeps talking about," he said, the words dripping with sarcasm. "Cute, but surely not capable of anything serious?" The officers around him snickered quietly, the sound harsh against the silence that demanded respect. Her hands tightened on the folder in front of her. Her heart pounded, a mix of fury and disbelief flooding her veins. This wasn't the first time she'd been underestimated, but the sting always burned. Her eyes swept the room, counting the familiar faces, some curious, some smirking, some indifferent. She clenched her jaw. The general's laugh echoed like a gavel, ruling over the humiliation like it was a ceremony. And yet, behind her calm exterior, a storm brewed. Every insult, every doubt flung her way was fuel. She drew a slow breath, steadying the tremor in her hands. There was no immediate retort. She was a professional and patience had its place. But inside the fire raged. The general's assistant, a young captain, leaned over, whispering a reminder about protocol. But she didn't need it. She had faced harsher critics, harsher circumstances, and had emerged scarred but undefeated. Her eyes met the general's, a quiet promise of reckoning. She slowly opened the folder, letting the faint rustle of paper punctuate the room's tense hum. Every snicker and condescending glance suddenly seemed to shrink, the weight of their arrogance tangible. She removed a single document, flipping it carefully, and revealed a line of metals that caught the fluorescent light. A hush fell. Not just curiosity, confusion, disbelief, and finally shock. General Harkins blinked, a rare crack in his armor of arrogance. The room's energy shifted, the officers straightening instinctively. Something had changed. Something was about to unravel. She didn't speak yet. She let the metals do the talking. And in that frozen silence, the mockery began to collapse. The general opened his mouth, but no words came. His smirk faltered. The folder revealed 27 commendations, each one earned under fire, each one a testament to courage he could never understand. The room waited. She finally lifted her head, eyes calm, voice steady. "Shall we continue, General?" Before this confrontation, she was known as Lieutenant Commander Arya Voss. Small-town roots in Nebraska, a childhood spent navigating vast cornfields and learning resilience from her single father. Her mother had died when Arya was 8, leaving her with memories of laughter, warmth, and a shadow of loss she carried silently. She grew up scrappy, a tomboy with a sharp mind, often underestimating the expectations placed upon her by teachers and neighbors. The word pretty had always been a double-edged sword, admiration mixed with doubt. She joined the Navy at 17, driven not by dreams of medals but by the desire to carve her own path. Boot camp was merciless. She stumbled, fell, and was mocked relentlessly. Yet, every bruise, every exhausting mile she ran, forged a steel determination. By the time she graduated, she was no longer just a girl from Nebraska. She was someone the Navy feared would rise faster than anyone expected. Her first mission was a storm of chaos. An ambush in the Strait of Hormuz tested everything she had learned. Arya led her team through gunfire and shrapnel, improvising tactics that saved lives. She returned with not just survivors but accolades, some visible, others known only to those who had seen the shadows of war. Her medals were silent witnesses, each one a story of courage under fire, decisions that could have cost lives, and moments of sheer instinct. Yet outside the battlefield, Arya had to navigate another war. The skepticism of her peers, the sly glances, the constant doubt cast by authority figures who equated femininity with fragility. She had learned to smile, to nod, to be cute, and underestimated, all while quietly collecting evidence of her capability. Every doubt thrown her way became a motivation. And now, standing in the room with General Harkins, all those years of preparation and survival would converge. Behind her calm exterior, the girl from Nebraska still lingered, a survivor, a fighter, a strategist. But she had also become something more, a legend among the ranks, feared, respected, and ready. Her childhood taught her patience, her military career taught her precision. And in that conference room those lessons crystallized. Absolutely. Here's Chapter 3 in the same style, 450 words, cinematic, emotional and building tension. Arya's first deployment felt like stepping into another world. The sun had barely risen over the salt-scorched docks of Bahrain when she and her team boarded the sleek, gray vessel that would become their temporary home. The waves slapped against the hull like the rhythm of an impatient drum, each impact a reminder that danger was never far away. She adjusted her tactical vest, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing against her shoulders. The other officers eyed her with thinly veiled skepticism, their glances lingering longer than necessary. Arya smiled politely, masking the churn of nerves and determination beneath. Her mission was deceptively simple: secure a coastal village threatened by insurgent activity and gather intelligence. But as they approached the shoreline, the quiet tension of the early morning exploded into chaos. Gunfire ripped through the air, a sharp, metallic symphony of destruction. Arya froze for only a heartbeat, then instinct kicked in. She barked orders, her voice slicing through panic like a knife. Her team moved seamlessly, drawn by her authority, reacting as if every maneuver had been rehearsed 1,000 times. The village burned, smoke curling into the pale dawn, and civilians huddled in shadows, terrified. Every decision she made in those moments held life or death in its balance. One young Marine faltered, panicked under fire. Arya sprinted forward, dragging him behind cover, her adrenaline sharp and unrelenting. Explosions shook the ground beneath her boots, dirt and debris filling her lungs, but she kept moving, kept calculating, kept surviving. She watched a sniper take position on a crumbling rooftop and adjusted her team's formation, neutralizing the threat with precision. By the time the chaos subsided, the village had been secured, insurgents apprehended, and no civilian casualties recorded. Her team looked to her with newfound respect, some in disbelief, others silently impressed. That evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon in streaks of red and gold, Arya sat alone on the deck. The medals she would later receive were not yet tangible, but their weight already existed in her chest, the invisible acknowledgement of bravery, of choices made under pressure, of courage sewn into every instinct. She traced her fingers over the small scars forming on her knuckles from the day's fight, thinking of her father's voice. That mantra echoed through her, a tether to home, to purpose, to the resolve that had brought her this far. Somewhere deep in her heart, she knew the road ahead would be harsher. Doubt from others would persist. Authority would sneer at her, call her pretty, or civilian, but she also knew that her actions would speak louder than any words. Every medal she earned, every mission she survived, was a whisper of power, a warning cloaked in humility. And Arya, with the sun setting behind her, allowed herself a small, determined smile. The world would learn to respect her. Eventually. Back on the naval base, life did not slow. The officers who had once sneered at Arya now whispered behind closed doors, their doubt shadowed by curiosity. Some tried to test her, assigning impossible deadlines, questioning every tactical suggestion, hoping she would falter. The general under whose command she would later face humiliation, General Harkins, was already circling, his sharp eyes measuring her, calculating her weaknesses. He treated her with polite condescension in public, mocking in private. And yet, for every attempt to undermine her, Arya responded with quiet efficiency, letting results do the talking. Even her closest allies on the team watched her with mixed feelings. Lieutenant Commander Rourke, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a soft heart and a reputation for fairness, admired her courage but worried the base politics would crush her spirit. "They're testing you, Arya," he said one evening as they walked past the glinting parade grounds, empty under the moonlight. "Just don't let them see you sweat." She smiled, a curve that didn't reach her eyes. "I've sweated enough to fill an ocean, Rourke," she replied. His silence spoke volumes. He understood the weight she carried, the history behind every medal, the invisible battles fought long before boot camp, long before the general's mocking smile. Arya spent nights reviewing strategies, memorizing enemy patterns, learning the politics of the base with the same precision she had learned navigation charts. Every time she walked the corridors, she could hear the faint murmurs, the judgments, the low expectations, the disbelief that someone so pretty could command competence. She filed them away, cataloging the slights, each one a reminder that success was the ultimate answer. One afternoon, a sudden emergency erupted in the training yard. A live-fire exercise went wrong. A trainee panicked, putting everyone at risk. Arya reacted instantly. With split-second precision, she neutralized the threat, guiding panicked soldiers to safety while securing the errant munitions. The incident, brief yet intense, left everyone stunned. She didn't seek recognition. She didn't smile. But whispers of her capability began circulating, forcing even the skeptics to reconsider. Yet despite victories, the shadow of Harkin's skepticism loomed. Every medal she would earn, every success, felt like a step on a path toward proving herself, not to the world, not to civilians, but to the man who would later mock her presence. In quiet moments, Arya let herself imagine the confrontation to come, rehearsing patience, precision, and the perfect reveal. Her calm exterior hid a storm of anticipation. She knew that one day the room would fall silent. She just didn't yet know when, or how devastatingly powerful that silence would feel. The base buzzed with the normal hum of drills, machinery, and disciplined footsteps, but beneath the surface, whispers had become knives. One morning, Arya arrived at the intelligence briefing to find her latest mission reassigned, without explanation, to Captain Leiden, a man notorious for politicking rather than action. Arya's heart sank for a moment, but she quickly masked the sting with a tight-lipped nod. She knew better than to react openly. Patience was a weapon she had wielded longer than most of these officers had worn uniforms. The mission was critical, a covert reconnaissance behind enemy lines in the volatile desert borderlands. Lives would hang in the balance, and Arya had already prepared meticulous strategies, charts, and contingency plans. Leiden, buoyed by favoritism, treated her instructions as optional suggestions, altering deployment points recklessly. Soldiers looked to her for guidance, but she couldn't intervene officially. The betrayal stung sharper than any bullet. Her mind raced. Failure wasn't an option, not for the troops, not for herself, and certainly not for the silent promise she had made to prove her worth. Night fell over the desert as the team advanced. Arya observed from the shadows, calculating each movement, correcting errors silently through subtle signals and gestures. A sudden flare illuminated enemy positions. Gunfire erupted, chaotic and disorienting. Leiden hesitated, exposing his team to danger. Arya didn't panic. She darted forward, suppressing fire, shielding the inexperienced soldiers and neutralizing threats with ruthless efficiency. One by one, her actions saved lives, her calm precision carving order from chaos. By dawn, the mission was accomplished. Leiden tried to claim credit, but the soldiers' loyalty spoke louder than his words. They knew who had led them through the firefight, who had calculated each move and ensured no one was left behind. Arya stepped forward, her uniform dust-streaked, hands steady, eyes burning with quiet fire. She didn't boast, didn't demand recognition, but she also didn't need to. Her presence, her competence had done the talking. Back at the base, whispers of her courage grew louder. Even the skeptical officers began to take note. And yet, the shadow of General Harkin's mockery remained. He had seen the reports, had watched her success grow in quiet contempt, preparing for the moment he would dismiss her entirely. Arya knew the confrontation was drawing near, each mission, each act of heroism, edging closer to the inevitable reveal. She allowed herself a private moment of grim satisfaction. She had survived betrayal, had protected lives despite obstruction, and had done so with unwavering resolve. The desert wind carried the scent of sand and smoke as she returned to the base, her uniform torn, her hands scarred, but her spirit intact. Arya's mind was already calculating, already planning, not revenge but inevitability. The day would come when General Harkin's smirk would falter, when the room would fall silent, and when every medal, every story of survival, would speak louder than words ever could. And when it happened it would be undeniable. Arya returned to the base to find a new challenge waiting, one far more personal than battlefield dangers. Someone had tampered with mission logs, falsifying reports to make her appear negligent during a recent operation. The accusations were subtle, hidden in the language of bureaucracy, but they carried the weight to ruin her career. Her eyes narrowed as she scanned the documents. She knew instantly this wasn't random, it was deliberate, a trap set by someone threatened by her reputation. And somewhere General Harkins was watching, ready to laugh if she stumbled. The whispers began almost immediately. Fellow officers questioned her judgment behind closed doors, their voices low but sharp. Even trusted allies hesitated, unsure who to believe. Arya felt a rare pang of doubt, a flicker of vulnerability. But she couldn't allow it to take root. She spent long hours in the intelligence office, cross-referencing every log, every report, and every tactical note. The desert dust still clung to her boots from the last mission, a reminder of what was real, what mattered. And slowly, with painstaking effort, she uncovered the evidence. Leiden had orchestrated the falsification, desperate to undermine her. Confronting him wasn't easy. Leiden tried to twist the story, his voice smooth and venomous. "You don't have proof," he sneered, assuming her silence was weakness. But Arya remained calm, the fire in her eyes hidden behind professional composure. She presented her findings to the command council, detailing every step, every alteration and every fabricated note. The council listened, incredulous, their faces shifting from doubt to shock. Arya had turned the trap back on its architect. Yet the ordeal had taken its toll. That night, alone in her quarters, Arya pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the tightness of tension and exhaustion. Memories of past losses and betrayals surfaced. The death of her mother, the lonely nights in boot camp, the ridicule from authority figures. She allowed herself a brief moment of grief, a quiet exhale in the darkness, before replacing it with resolve. Every challenge, every betrayal had been a test. She had survived each one. She would survive this too. The next morning she walked onto the parade grounds with renewed strength. Soldiers saluted her instinctively, respect evident in their eyes. Even officers who had doubted her earlier now watched with quiet awe. Arya knew the confrontation with General Harkins was imminent. He would attempt mockery, attempt dominance, attempt to belittle her in front of everyone. But she had prepared, not just her words but her presence, her reputation, and the undeniable truth of her achievements. The storm of his arrogance would meet the force of her experience, and when it did, the entire room would fall silent. As the sun rose over the base, casting long shadows across the concrete and metal, Arya felt a rare smile tug at her lips. All at once, the power dynamics shifted. The officers straightened, saluting instinctively, a tacit acknowledgement of her authority. Harkins, humbled in front of the room, realized that mockery had no place against lived experience, skill, and undeniable proof. Every glance, every action he had taken to belittle her was now irrelevant. The room had learned something irrevocable. Arya Voss was not a civilian, not a pretty distraction, but a soldier of unparalleled skill and courage. Arya closed the folder and stepped back, her expression calm but victorious. The room's energy had changed, charged with respect and awe. The lesson was complete. Mockery had failed. Authority, when misused, could crumble before truth and resilience. And for the first time, General Harkins understood that underestimating her had been the gravest error of his career. The base seemed smaller somehow, quieter, as if the walls themselves were acknowledging the shift in power. Word of Arya's confrontation with General Harkins had spread like wildfire, carrying not just her courage but the undeniable proof of her excellence. Officers who once doubted her now approached with a mix of awe and apology, their voices hesitant, eyes cast downward. Even the newest recruits looked at her with respect that bordered on reverence. She had turned humiliation into authority, skepticism into obedience, mockery into silence. Arya walked through the parade grounds that afternoon, boots crunching on the gravel, the desert sun casting long shadows behind her. Soldiers snapped to attention, saluting automatically, their movements precise and confident. For years she had trained them, guided them, saved their lives, sometimes silently, sometimes against overwhelming odds. But now the acknowledgement was undeniable, visible in every gaze that followed her. Her chest swelled with pride, but it was tempered by the gravity of what had come before. Victory, she knew, was never just a medal, it was respect earned, life preserved, trust solidified. The final test came unexpectedly. A drill designed to simulate a full-scale breach went catastrophically wrong. Equipment failure, communication breakdown, and panic among the recruits. Yet, Arya responded without hesitation. She coordinated the team flawlessly, neutralized threats, and stabilized the situation. Every move demonstrated not just skill but leadership, intuition, and empathy. Officers who had once laughed at her decisions now watched in silence, the irony unmissable. Even General Harkins, standing rigid at the edge of the field, could only nod, his expression unreadable, his earlier arrogance dissolved into reluctant respect. Later, in the quiet of the command center, Arya allowed herself a moment of reflection. The scars on her hands, the sleepless nights, the betrayals, they were all reminders of the journey she had endured. The medals on her chest were more than decoration. They were proof of her resilience, courage, and unshakable determination. She remembered her father's words from long ago, "Strength is quiet until you need it loud." Now, those words resonated like a victory hymn, echoing across every life she had touched, every officer she had humbled, every soldier she had guided. As the sun set, painting the horizon in streaks of orange and gold, Arya stood at the edge of the base, her silhouette steady and resolute. The world had learned what she already knew. Mockery was powerless in the face of truth, courage, and skill. General Harkins, once a figure of authority and intimidation, had been silenced not by words, but by the undeniable proof of her achievements. In that moment, Arya's journey came full circle. She had not only survived, it had been a triumphant reclamation of respect, justice, and honor. The next morning, the base buzzed with quiet anticipation. A ceremony had been arranged, a recognition not just of one mission, but of Arya's entire career, her unwavering courage, and the respect she had earned against years of doubt. Officers filed in, soldiers standing tall, the banners fluttering against a crisp desert sky. General Harkins, once the source of her humiliation, now sat with a stiff posture at the front, a silent acknowledgement of the transformation that had occurred. He no longer sneered. His expression carried grudging respect, the first honest reflection of the woman he had once mocked. Arya approached the podium, her uniform immaculate, her medals glinting under the sunlight. She felt the weight of every experience she had endured, boot camp, betrayal, sabotage, near-death drills, but also the strength she had gained from each obstacle. She looked across the assembled officers and soldiers, their eyes on her, a mixture of admiration, awe, and perhaps relief that she had led them through impossible circumstances. The air was charged, electric with unspoken acknowledgement that this moment was hers alone. Her voice, calm yet resonant, filled the space. She spoke of courage, of resilience, of the invisible battles fought long before medals were earned. She spoke of loyalty, trust, and the importance of protecting one another not for glory but because lives depended on it. Every word carried authenticity, every pause held power. The soldiers listened, captivated, their respect solidified by the wisdom behind her actions. Even Harkins remained silent, absorbing a lesson he could not teach, could not undermine. When the ceremony concluded, the awards were formally presented. Arya accepted each commendation with grace, acknowledging her team, the officers who had stood with her, and even those who had tried to undermine her. Her triumph was not revenge, it was validation, a public affirmation of what she had always known. Her courage, her skill, and her determination were unstoppable. The room, once filled with skepticism and mockery, now radiated respect, the echoes of past doubts replaced by admiration and silence. As she stepped down from the podium, soldiers saluted, officers nodded, and the desert sun bathed her in a warm glow. General Harkins approached briefly, extending his hand with genuine acknowledgement. Arya shook it, her gaze steady, her expression calm. No words were needed, the moment spoke volumes. She had transformed mockery into triumph, doubt into respect, and adversity into undeniable proof of her power. Later, standing alone on the balcony overlooking the base, Arya allowed herself a smile. The wind carried the scent of sand and possibility. She had survived, she had led, and she had conquered, not with arrogance but with courage, precision, and unwavering resolve. The world had seen her truth. And in that truth, Arya Voss had left a legacy no one would ever forget.